Hi, and welcome to our online portion of this year's Booth Awards. The Edwin Booth Award is given annually by the Doctoral Theater Students Association at the CUNY Graduate Center to honor a person, organization, or company for their outstanding contribution to the New York City theater scenes and to promote the relationships between our performance and academic communities. The Graduate Center and New York City are on the island of Manhattan, which is unceded land belonging to the Lenape people and what is called Lenapehoking. While Lenapehoking welcomes visitors, it is with the responsibility that we treat the earth and everything on it with respect. We are thrilled to be connecting with people from around the world today. And for that, we would also like to share a digital land acknowledgement by Adrian Wong from Spider Web Show in Ontario. Since our activities are shared digitally to the internet, let us take a moment to consider the legacy of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. We are using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many Indigenous communities. Even the technologies that are central to much of the art and scholarship we make leave significant carbon footprints, contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect worldwide. I invite you to join us in acknowledging all of this, as well as our shared responsibility to make good of this time, and for us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship.
As the 2021 Booth Award Committee, we are here in representation of the entire Doctoral Theater Student Association. We want to begin by acknowledging that the 2021 Booth Award ceremony would not have been possible without the amazing support, financial and otherwise, that we've received from the Doctoral Theater Student Association and the Doctoral Theater Student Association's board, Dr. Frank Hinchker and Andy Lerner of the Marvin Siegel Theater Center, Professor Jean Graham Jones, the Lucille Lortel Chair in Theater, Professor Marvin Carlson, the Sidney E. Cohn Chair in Theater, Professor David Savrin, the Vera Mowry Roberts Chair in Theater, and the Doctoral and Graduate Students Council of the City University of New York. We'd also like to extend our thanks to Professor Peter Eckersall, Professor Erica Lynn, and our Academic Program Coordinator and Assistant Program Officer, Patricia Goodson, Thea Rogers, and the whole team at HowlRound, as well as Laia Cabrera and Isabel Deverger, who assisted us with the technical aspects of this online event, Anthony DeMarco and the National Captioning Institute, and finally, Diana Raznovich, who created the cartoon that accompanies us throughout the ceremony.
Diana Taylor is University Professor and Professor of Performance Studies and Spanish at New York University. As a prolific scholar, Taylor is the author of multiple books, including Theater of Crisis, Disappearing Acts, The Archive and the Repertoire, Performance, Presente, The Politics of Presence. Her work has been widely celebrated and translated into Portuguese and Spanish. From 1998 to 2020, Taylor serves as the founding director of the Hemispheric Institute of Performance and Politics. She is the recipient of the Guggenheim Fellowship and several other major awards. In 2017, Taylor was president of the Modern Language Association. In 2018, she was inducted into the American Academy of Arts and Science.
Since she co-founded the Institution for Women and Social Change to the Institute for Politics and Performance to the Hemispheric Institute of Performance and Politics, Diana Taylor has dedicated her career to bringing artists, activists, scholars, and students together to discuss and act on the urgent social issue of our time. Scholarship, she argued in her book, is also a form of activism, an intervention that can channel the expertise and resources of university to engage other community of practice. What can we do, she asked, when apparently nothing can be done and doing nothing is not an option? A lot. In her honor, we are dedicating the ceremony to reflecting on activism within academia.
I'm personally inspired by the spirit of celebration that accompanies her work, despite the dark sides it often traverses. Celebration becomes a political act against oppression, against injustice, even against cruelty and horror, because to celebrate is a way to invoke and commune with life. It is also a way of being together and becoming presente. I once heard Diana Taylor quoting Luis Antonio Simas and Luis Rufino as they state in Encantamiento sobre Política de Vida that the opposite of life is not death. The opposite of life is disenchantment. One cannot be disenchanted when fully present. Furthermore, she reminds us that becoming present carries within an ethical responsibility, because el trabajo de hacer presencia es también para aquellos a quienes se les ha negado hacer presencia. The labor of doing presence is also for those who have been denied that possibility of doing presence. Diana Taylor encourages us to take action and to continue to do work and to care, despite the nihilism of a neoliberal world. Becoming present requires a will. It's an action we decide to take, and it is an act of solidarity and an act of generosity. This is the work she's cultivated throughout her life and career, and many are the people who in return want to become present for her today and celebrate her. One of the advantages of having had to organize this year's award ceremony online is that it allowed us to bring them here. We've been able to invite artists and scholars who are not in New York to also participate. This online ceremony is composed in two main parts. The first one is a series of tributes to Diana, performances and saludos, greetings, coming from across the hemispheres. We will then open the space for Diana Taylor to say a few words in response. In the second part, students in our program, the doctoral program in theater and performance of the CUNY Graduate Center, will pay tribute to her work with a series of provocations. And Diana Taylor will also respond and enter in conversation with them. At the end of this online ceremony, we will open a espacio de saludo, or room for greetings, and you'll be able to call on Zoom and meet her there. You will have more information about this and how to access the Zoom call in the chat of Howl Around as the event progresses. Since we could not occupy physical space for this, we have taken time instead. The online ceremony will last around 3 hours because there are many who want to be present for her today. You should be able to follow what happens when by looking at the schedule that you will find somewhere here in the cyber site you are in right now, home of Howl Around. But of course, we could not celebrate Diana Taylor without an in-person gathering. We had to be presentes. And for months, we've been praying to the gods to make that possible. Fortunately, our wish was granted, and we have a gorgeous sun in the sky and a much safer situation in regards to COVID, at least in New York City. It's not the case, unfortunately, around the world. We will continue then the celebration at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time in Washington Square. For those of you in New York, we hope that you join us, and do not forget to bring your headphones and phone. But let's begin. One of the things that we have learned from engaging in the organization of this award ceremony is that Diana walks with many people, and she leaves beautiful traces as she and they walk. We hope that you enjoy the journey.
Estamos felices en los dos hemisferios de presentar este premio para Diana Taylor. Diana, Diana, Diana para Diana, Diana Taylor's Good Award. Diana, Diana, Diana para Diana, Diana Taylor's Good Award. Celebramos en New York y también en Tepoztlán. Celebration in New York and the town of Tepoztlán. Diana, Diana, Diana para Diana, Diana Taylor's Good Award. Diana, Diana, Diana para Diana, Diana Taylor's Good Award.
Bienvenidos, benvindo, welcome. I'm here. My name is George Emilio Sanchez. I'm very honored to be invited, to have been asked to say a few words for Diana Taylor, who's the recipient of the 2021 CUNY Grad DTSA Edwin Booth Award. I teach at CUNY. I didn't know about this award. I didn't, but boy, what an award. I mean, the recipients that she is stepping in and following up with. I mean, Ellen Stewart, Joseph Papp, hello, Arthur Miller, Joanne Akalaitis, Richard Foreman, Mabu Mines, the Wooster Group, Split Britches, Maria Irene Fornes, Karen Finley, Tony Kushner, Ann Bogart, Dixon Place, the Reverend Billy, Taylor Mack, George Emilio, getting ahead of myself, not yet. No, seriously, Diana is a seminal figure in theater and performance, and in terms of her relationship and her understanding and her expert writing on theater and performance in south of the border. And Diana's the one who started this movement. She created the Hemispheric Institute at NYU, which is how we got to know each other. I'm very lucky to have gotten to know her, and I know that her work is just so incredibly important. NYU is very lucky to have her. Her students are lucky to have her. Performance studies wouldn't be where it is without Diana. And she's someone who really understands the need and the importance of artists and art makers across the borders. And she's expert at understanding how to walk in different worlds, how to speak the different languages of theater and performance in contemporary times with a sense of history that very few people have, and with a conviction politically that we need more and more of, especially in academia, especially in the world, and here in New York City. So I'm so happy and I'm elated for Diana, but also for all of us to be in the same space to acknowledge people like her and that we need in the world, especially in the 21st century as we move forward. It's my great honor to have been invited. I congratulate you, Diana. I promise you we'll meet, we'll go out for dinner, and we can split the check, and then, we'll just have a great time. Nevertheless, thank you, congratulations, and I wish I could be there, but I guess I am there. Diana, you deserve it all. Thank you for all your work, and I know that you will continue.
Diana, what a treat it is to be able to send you saludos on becoming the Booth awardee. No one more deserving. Now, you and I have known each other for a long time. Not a lifetime, but a long time. And when I think of you, I have so many images and memories, but I just want to select a handful that crystallize for me the extraordinary woman who has won this award. The first image is a photo. It's a kid, a little girl in Mexico. And she's wearing a cowboy outfit, and I think she's holding a gun, a toy gun, of course. And she's sitting on a bridge. And she's there in Mexico because her father is an engineer. She's growing up as a little girl in Mexico. And there is such vibrancy in that little girl, such glee, such a sense of adventure. And she's not really wearing ribbons and frilly dresses. Oh no, this cowgirl is ready to go. The second image I have is one you gave me through a story of what happened to you after Mexico. And you were sent to Toronto, a wonderful city, but much colder than Mexico. And you were sent to Toronto to be sent to a rather stern boarding school. And they wanted to tame you. They wanted to cut your hair. They wanted you to sit still in pews. And you wouldn't. You wouldn't. You were untamable. And you pounded around a running track, sent to run many laps in punishment. And you said to yourself as you ran, "You're not going to get me. You're not going to get me. You're not going to get me." Those might not have been your exact words, but my paraphrase is close enough. The third image I have is when you were planning the Hemispheric Institute. Extraordinary, innovative, what a brilliantly innovative program it was to bring performance studies in multiple languages from the Arctic to the Antarctic, and to make it accessible not only in meetings, but also digitally. You saw the promise of digitalization. And we set a table in my office at NYU, and we thought, how much money? You needed an endowment of $1 million, we thought. Huge sum. You went out and got it. You went out and got it. You climbed the mountain of $1 million and put your pennant on the top of that mountain. My next memory is, of course, of an incubantrum, one in New York University. Late night, small room, low ceiling, a singer. And the music flooded over us all. It flooded beyond the walls. It flooded throughout ether. And this is what the Institute could do. The coming together of art across lands, but also the extraordinary power of art. As you released in the Encuentros, the extraordinary power of art to transcend borders, to lower borders, and to let you live in a place where the only boundaries are the limits of your imagination and compassion. I've really talked about your personality, talked about two kinds of activism. Activism in the world conventionally defined, and activism within academic institutions that changes them. Of course, it meant something. Your devotion to Chiapas is extraordinarily important in terms of activism for political and social change. But my final part of my saludos is the first time I picked up the repertoire and the archive in the repertoire. And I began to read it. And I thought, this is really good. And I had that experience that you have when you can encounter a book, see a piece of art, meet a person, or even walk out and hear the birds sing. That experience of an ineffable uniqueness, which is benignly formidable, not bent on domination, but bent on the beautiful forms of change. Change in our institutions, change in our thinking, change in our methods, change in our sense of the possibilities of change. But let me end where I began, with that terrific little girl in her cowboy outfit, sitting on a bridge in Mexico, brimming with energy, brimming with life, who would go on to build such bridges between people, between countries, between our concepts of scholarship, art, and activism. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Deanna. You are a great treasure.
Diana, you so deserve the Edwin Booth Award. Your books, from Theater of Crisis and Disappearing Acts, through to the archive and the repertoire, performance, and presente. Your ideas, your political and social commitment, and your sheer brilliance put you in the forefront of performance studies. Your founding and leading of HEMI opened performance studies to the global south. Your chairing of NYU's PS department, your writing and decades of great teaching and dissertation directing went a long, long way toward establishing the field, both in the USA and far beyond. In short, without you, Diana, performance studies as we know and practice it would not exist. But my relationship with you goes far beyond the professional. I have many professional friends, but few ongoing, really deep friends. Diana, you're one of those. We meet whenever we can, don't we? At Marumi, a little Japanese restaurant on LaGuardia Place. We talk about anything and everything. Family, politics, academia, scholarship, theater, TV, whatever. I so look forward to our lunches. They are times outside of time. They are fun, they are educational, they are intellectual. We are open and present and honest with each other. We kvetch, we celebrate, we laugh, we empathize, we plan and enjoy the sushi along with the conversation. The whole strong embrace of friendship. Diana, may you continue to flourish for many, many more years.
That we just spent 35 minutes talking about you, Diana, and how you have impacted our life and our work and our life's work. And the thing I said right before we turned on the recording was, it is completely impossible for me to imagine my life and my professional self, my work, my research, my investments without thinking of you. You have for 7 years that I was at school with you and working at HEMI, and just so part of the world that you opened up for everyone here. And so it feels like there is not enough time and not enough words to thank you with, or to kind of do justice to the impact that you've had. I will say one thing before passing it off to my wonderful colleagues, which is, we were talking about how you really provided a model, and you continue to do that for all of us, on how to make space in institutions for the work that you really want to do and the work that you need to do. You modeled for us how to make space in our own institutions, how to make the institution work for you in all these kind of complicated and important ways, and how to open up space for social justice, for activism, for art, for life in all of these institutional spaces. Letty put it in a beautiful way. She said, you modeled for us how to be brave in the face of risk. So I don't think we can thank you enough for that.
Yes, Diana, querida, what Olivia said is exactly what I'm feeling right now. I am where I am because of you. I do what I do because of you. And I plan to keep working because of that inspiration. And I thank you for that sense of taking risks and being brave. Chiapas that has been a huge part of how I understand academia, art, and activism. And I remember always the fear, of being in a different country, doing something that was meant to be risky. It was meant to call attention to important issues that are concerned not only the people in Chiapas or even the group in Chiapas, but everybody in the Americas. And there was always like a couple of minutes of silence, knowing that I was risky. And then we all were on board. We all were with you saying, yes, we have to do this. And you always bring people together. You keep bringing people together. You brought us together. And that is also part of working with, being with all this wonderful collective and a wonderful group of people who have been touched and keep looking up to you. Thank you for everything, Diana.
Diana, from day one, I am very grateful that I learned what performance studies is or was through a transnational perspective. That sounds very nerdy, but that was the case. Before even I knew what the field did or was about, I was already in conversation and comparing notes, and that means the world to me. It has shaped me as a scholar, as a practitioner. I am completely thankful for you, for your leadership, for the way you model what a scholar, artist, activist is, and what is to think and theorize from the ground up, and in trasnocheos, that parties meant also like learning about performance and identities, and I am losing the words really, but I would thank you for supporting the risk taking with rigor. Also, like we were talking about how you have not shied away from difficult conversations, and in a way, I kind of like want to praise one of the perhaps the most difficult parts of your job. I think that was, it's not supposed to be pleasant, but that you have not shied away. That is like engaging discussions and frictions, especially when moving across cultures. And as you say in Presente, coming to terms with the realities of these disparities that, in the institutions we work in, and the funding we have, and the kind of work we still need to be doing in the belly of the empire sometimes, and what we can contribute to the communities we are engaged with. So thank you so much for being there for us and modeling the path. Now we're supposed to say what personally we got from Diana.
It's funny because it's kind of, it's intertwined, is the personal, is political, our work is academic and also part of our affects, and that is so Diana. So we can try a collective we love you, Diana. Try like 1, 2, 3. We love you, Diana. To see if it works in okay.
Gracias, Diana.
Okay.
Te queremos.
So we love you, Diana, and te queremos, Diana. Okay, so
Okay.
1,
Gracias por todo.
2, 3.
We love you, Diane.
Gracias. Es el Zoom.
Es el Zoom. Te queremos, Diana.
Queremos.
Gracias,
Thank
Diana.
you for everything.
Hi, Diana. Congratulations on this much-deserved award. Through your work, you have touched so many hearts, mine included. Refusing the limitations of national, geopolitical, and disciplinary boundaries with your passion, your commitment, your brilliance, and your warmth, you have conjured a cacophony of hearts beating at the intersection of art, activism, and scholarship, and at the oh-so-generative crossroads of archive and repertoire. From my heart to yours.
Hello, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here to celebrate with you Diana Taylor. She's a personal friend and also an enormous inspiration, a mentor to me. We're contemporaries, but she's always been my maestra. We started to collaborate about 20 years ago with an idea about the politics as performance in Latin America. And she since has developed this incredible institution of the Hemispheric Institute. Everyone knows it. Everyone wants to be part of it. Everyone is welcome to it. She is not only a talented scholar, which she is, and artist, which she is, and brilliant pedagogue, which she is also an incredibly talented administrator, an architect of institutions. And so she makes room for us all. Artists, academics, community leaders, we all collaborate through her, with each other, and always with her inspiration and her warmth. She's irresistible. She has the kind of confidence that makes you feel that what you're doing is the only thing you should be doing, and it's doing something in the world that's creative and beautiful and makes more connections, more love, more caring for the world, caring in both senses of loving it and being responsible for it. So I give my most sincere and enthusiastic, warm, celebratory remarks to celebrating Diana Taylor here with you and with my sincere gratitude. Thank you.
Solemos hacer este ejercicio en los talleres de teatro y una vez Diana Taylor quiso participar. Por supuesto, lo único que yo hago es pedir que traigan una piedra. Bueno, ella llegó con 5 piedras. Lo primero que hizo fue repartirles a los que no habían traído. Y después, sin soltar las que le quedaban, comenzó a dar órdenes como así, no, ponla más para acá, ponla más para allá. Y estaba un poco enojada porque no ponían todas las piedras uno sobre otra, pues la premisa era llegar lo más alto posible. Una vez que habíamos llegado hasta el final, Diana, por supuesto, puso la última y la más difícil de todas con una enorme precisión y sencillez. Porque así es Diana, es precisa, certera y generosa.
soy artista, soy alpiste. No soy artista, soy quien fuiste. No soy artista, soy tan triste. No soy artista, soy alpiste. No soy artista, soy forraje. No soy artista, soy salvaje. No soy artista, soy chantaje. No soy artista, soy maquillaje. No soy artista, soy sabotaje. No soy artista, soy peregrinaje. No soy artista, soy memorista. No soy artista, soy desquicia. No soy artista, soy antirracista. No soy artista, soy alquimista. No soy artista, soy anti-imperialista. No soy artista, soy abolicionista. No soy artista, soy anticolonialista. No soy artista, soy anarquista. No soy artista, soy feminista. No soy artista, soy tequise. No soy artista, soy charlista. No soy artista, soy quien viste. No soy artista, soy huiste. No soy artista, soy volviste.
You have changed and shaped the performance studies field. You have been a mentor for many, many, many scholars and an inspiration for artists and activists in the Americas and beyond. But today, I'm not here to review your extensive career, but to send you a personal message. To me, you've been a dedicated mentor and a generous friend. I can attest in firsthand that what you write in your last book regarding walking with others, standing up in solidarity, accompanying and being presente is exactly the way that you live your life in the academy and beyond. Throughout the years and in so many ways, you've been presente for me and my family. As an artist and a scholar, I've learned so much of you, and you've brought to my life an exquisite mixture of intellectual vitality, joy, rage against injustice, and hope. And you have shown me and shown all of us how to live a life in the academy and how to be ethically and politically present in the academy. I've learned so much just seeing you mentoring other people, teaching and doing your research. One of the things that I admire of you is your impressive ability to bring together people. The Hemispheric Institute of Performance and Politics is an enormous evidence of your effort, your work, your passion, and your ability to convey people, the most diverse people, and to facilitate productive and caring relationships. I'm looking forward to the moment in which we will be able to share a good glass of red wine to celebrate your award. In the meanwhile, I'm sending you all my admiration, my gratitude, and congratulations again. Venceremos.
For me, the great fortune of being able to work with Diana Taylor and to experience her active presence as a mentor, a colleague, and a friend goes back to a conversation we had almost in passing, almost 25 years ago, in which I discovered her relationship with some women whom I grew up around and who helped raise me in my hometown, Las Vegas, Nevada, in the late 60s and early 70s. These were women whose names were Ruby Duncan, Irma O'Neill, and Mary Wesley, among many others, who formed one of the most militant and effective chapters of the National Welfare Rights Organization, and who also comprised an amazing group of activists, students, theorists, workers, mothers, and children called Poor People Pulling Together. I grew up in their meetings. My mother, Bea Jenkins, and Miss Duncan worked together, lobbied together in the state legislature in Carson City. I went to summer camp with Miss Duncan's kids, Sandra and Roy, at a place called Foresta Institute, located in Washoe County, Nevada, which was run by a great activist and organizer named Maya Miller, who was proud to have been the only Nevadan on Richard Nixon's enemy list. Well, Miss Miller wasn't the only enemy he had out there. She was just the only one he and his henchmen knew about. What I learned in 1998, when I first started working at NYU Performance Studies and with Diana, was that she knew about them all, even if Tricky Dick didn't. She was his enemy too, and she was Miss Duncan's and my mother's friend, their fellow traveler. It was an amazing thing to know that the women whom I'd always brought with me wherever I'd gone were there to meet me and embrace me in and with Diana. It was such a beautiful surprise, not only to know Diana, that you knew them too, but also that you too knew them to be worthy of love and respect and study. Your work is part of the beautiful tradition of beautiful struggle that links the welfare mothers of Las Vegas with the mothers of the Plaza de Mayo. You not only study, but also extend an international, anti-national matrix, a hemispheric maternal ecology of revolutionary action at a distance that frees our common presence from the brutal political, economic, and metaphysical constraints that seek to hold it in vicious separation. You have remembered and illuminated and deepened our repertoire, and your work is and will remain presente. I'm very thankful for it and for you, and I couldn't be more pleased to join in the chorus of those who are celebrating you now with nothing but gratitude and love.
Ligonef vi petú de la cruz, lige montalta sosle. Mi nombre es Petrona de la Cruz Cruz, soy originaria de Sinacantán, hablante de la lengua tzotzil. Mi gran felicitación enorme para Diana Taylor, que recibe este premio por su gran trabajo, por la gran actividad que ha realizado en muchas ciudades, en muchos pueblos. Fue un honor para mí haberla conocido en 1993. Desde entonces, para mí, he compartido mucho trabajo, muchas experiencias, conversaciones, y para mí es una gran persona. Así que mi gran felicitación para ella por este premio que le entregan. Y también puede compartir un trabajo enorme y compartir sus ideas, sus experiencias. Cuando estuvo el Instituto Hemisférico de Performances y Políticas aquí en San Cristóbal de las Casas, Chiapas, México, fue un honor compartir y caminar junto con ella. Fue un honor estar aquí en San Cristóbal trabajando con ella. Ha quedado marcado en nuestros corazones ese trabajo, esa gran mujer que estuvo aquí en San Cristóbal. Ahora quiero dedicarle esas palabras que he escrito con todo mi cariño y amor para ella en este día que le entregan este premio. Diana, mujer colibrí, mujer universal, mujer de maíz, mujer sin fronteras, mujer de corazón enorme, mujer florecida. Desde lo más profundo de mi corazón, sé que te mereces este reconocimiento y mucho más, porque tus pasos, tu sonrisa y tu corazón han quedado marcados en nuestros corazones, los que te conocemos y los que hemos tenido el honor de compartir el teatro y performance contigo. Diana, eres la flor de varios pétalos, eres el sol y la luna, eres la mariposa que vuela y cruza fronteras, eres la luz en el arte. Gracias, Diana, por el gran trabajo que has realizado y compartido por varios países, estados y pueblos. Le agradezco a la vida y al universo por habernos encontrado en un mismo camino. Gracias, gracias, Diana. Colabalika Cotolik. Te mando un fuerte abrazo, Diana, aquí desde Chiapas, México. Y quiero que ese día te lo pases de lo más lindo y lo más bello recibiendo ese premio. Felicidades, Diana. Un fuerte abrazo.
Soy una mujer inconveniente, me lo dijo ayer mi presidente, que nunca seré embajadora por no usar tacón de señora. Y porque con la diplomacia no checan mis múltiples gracias. Soy una mujer inconveniente, tienes que tomarlo relajadamente. No te amo más que a mis gatos, pero te amo mucho a ratos. Ni lo suficiente alcanza y ahora me besas la panza. No soy tus pantuflas, ni soy tu madre, no soy tu gobierno, ni tu comadre. no prefiero adentro ni afuera, ni me colmará una chequera. Soy una mujer que entre otras cosas exhibe, ostenta una historia indecorosa. Soy una mujer inconveniente, de esas que son fieles relativamente. Dicen que no tengo moralina, porque me desnudo en la cocina. Dicen que no tengo moraleja, me gustan muchísimas cosas. Soy una mujer inconveniente, ráscame la espalda delicadamente. Siempre tengo ganas, muchas ganas, ganas de tenerte aquí en mi cama. Tráeme el desayuno en la mañana y al súper que vaya tu hermana. No soy tus pantuflas, ni soy tu madre, no soy tu gobierno, ni tu comadre. No prefiero adentro ni afuera, ni me colmará una chequera. Soy una mujer que entre otras cosas exhibe, ostenta una historia indecorosa.
I met Diana when she came to NYU and in 2001 attended my first Hemispheric Institute Encuentro in Monterrey, Mexico. I was hooked, and Diana and I have been walking and talking ever since. 11 encuentros and 20 plus years of friendship, conversation, adventures, collaborations, and many, many photographs. I love to travel with Diana, and what I do, I am what you could call her unofficial official photographer. Watching, listening, learning, marching, bearing witness. As Diana says, what to do when it seems like nothing can be done and doing nothing is not an option. Collaboration is central to everything Diana does. She thinks big. She is always present. I've had the privilege of making several trips with Diana to the Zapatista Caracol of Oventique in Chiapas, Mexico. They've been experiences that have truly changed my worldview. Resistance in action. Being open to unlearning what I think I know. In 2010 and 2013, I had the privilege of co-facilitating workshops on art and resistance with Diana and Jesusa Rodriguez in San Cristobal. As our truly fearless leader, Diana facilitated discussions, Jesusa facilitated our street actions, and I facilitated the photography components. They both taught me so much. 2010, protesting femicide, and in 2013, it was all about corn. Sin maíz, no hay vida. Without corn, there is no life. Jacques Servan of the Yes Men joined us to collaborate, so to speak, with Monsanto. In addition to the digital action, we created a street action inspired by Jesusa's vision. The good people of the corn took over the streets, battled with Monsanto, and won. Not only did we celebrate in the streets of San Cristobal that summer, but we also danced with the Zapatistas. We were honored to be able to attend the 20th anniversary celebration of their uprising against the Mexican government.
Zapatista! ¡Viva! ¡Viva la Sexta Nacional e Internacional! ¡Viva! ¡Viva la Sociedad Civil Nacional y Internacional!
I end my photographic tribute with the rousing standing ovation that Diana received in Mexico City in 2019 at her final encuentro as director of HEMI. Gracias, querida Diana, and congratulations. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to honor my friend and colleague, Diana Taylor.
We've known each other for a while now, Diana. We met through Mariana when you came to NYU, and later you asked me to join the Hemispheric Institute, which I must say truly changed my life. Your years as director, we went to so many places together. I met incredible people. Unfortunately, never learned how to speak Spanish that well, but I understand a lot more. Teaching together was fantastic, but I think it was also just hours of hanging out, talking, discussing ideas, going places. We'd photograph together and learning what you saw in my pictures, being able to have you use my photographs in so much of your work, talking about the visual arts versus the performing arts. It's, what art and resistance really means. And I also learned from you, you got me better at not taking no for an answer, being fearless, going after, really going after what you want, especially when it comes to benefiting others. Your generosity knows no bounds. I know that I personally have benefited from that, both professionally and personally, as I know many, many people who are listening today and speaking about you today have, and countless others who aren't watching today. Your scholarship is brilliant. Your conception of what can be done when people work together is expansive and inspiring. And you embody what good trouble is. And I look forward to many more adventures together, from causing more good trouble together, from cooking up things to do together, and just enjoying you and enjoying Eric and all we've shared together. So thank you and congratulations.
It's been almost 40 years since I met Diana at the Xerox machine. We started talking, and our conversation led to a collaborative intervention that brought us a small victory against institutional injustice. Well, we have not stopped talking, we have not stopped collaborating, we have not stopped colluding since, and we have tried to solve institutional problems, small and large. And we've succeeded once in a while. But for Diana, there is no problem that's too large. Are you a performance group whose work has never been archived? Diana will create a digital archive, and that will include your work. It will make it accessible across the world, along with the work of many other performers. Are you an indigenous theater company that doesn't have a theater? Diana will help you get one. Are you a migrant group that lacks access to food and healthcare? Diana will find the funding that will get you what you need. All of us who know her know that Diana is unstoppable. And we also know that if you join her on one of her journeys, you will be on a wild and exhilarating ride. You will learn so many things that you didn't think you needed urgently to know, but you will know that you cannot live without knowing those things. Diana's work is urgent, it is engaged, it is generous, it is ambitious in the most wonderful sense. It's exacting. It brings scholarship to the world with the aim of creating justice and repair. It's such a joy to be part of this celebration. There's no one who deserves it more. Thank you, Diana, for your inspiration, for your accompaniment, for walking and talking, and for solving all of our problems, large and small.
Querida Diana, felicidades on receiving the Edwin Booth Award from CUNY. It could not be more deserved. You've made such important contributions to the field, to the world, to your big global community of friends, scholars, artists, and activists. As you model so well for all of us, scholarship is activism and has incredible power to enact real change, amplifying calls for accountability and justice, participating in strategy, connecting communities, and so much more. So thank you for being our fearless leader, for your mentorship, for your friendship, I miss the days of you and Mariana matching in class. I don't have the exact striped shirt, but I tried in your honor, this award. I miss our cafecitos in Chiapas and our vinitos in Chile and everywhere. And I'm looking forward to many more. So un abrazo desde Tucson y felicidades.
Un gran saludo a ti, Diana. Gracias por todo. For rescuing me from unemployment, at least for a few years. For encouraging me to go all the way with crazy ideas like attacking the Mexican Department of Agriculture or choreographing a new wall. Por no demasiado juzgar mi español cuando fue un verdadero catástrofe. Y sobre todo, for reminding me that there's a way to just grab life by the pants and forget fear and just move forward. That's a lesson that's stuck, and that makes me think you're a teacher. Thank you.
Felicitaciones, Diana. Celebro contigo este premio, celebro tus logros, celebro tu vida. Agradezco por estos años de amistad y por todos los caminos que nos has abierto a les artistas de la región latinoamericana. Un fuerte abrazo desde Guatemala.
My name is Marcos Steinagel. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Theater and Dance and co-director of graduate studies for theater and performance studies here at the University of Colorado in Boulder. I remember when I moved to the United States and to New York City in 2007 to pursue my graduate studies at NYU in the Department of Performance Studies. Like many other international scholars, I came intent on studying the latest trends in contemporary theater and performance that were happening in the United States and in Europe. I had no exposure to Latin American theater and performance in my time as a student in Brazil. So I remember when reluctantly I signed up for Diana Taylor's Performance and Activism in Latin America, thinking that as a theater practitioner coming from Brazil, I kind of had to. Diana completely changed my approach to theater and performance, my relationship to my own country, and also my relationship to academia. Since then, Diana has been my professor. She's been a committee member in my dissertation. I've worked for Diana at the Hemispheric Institute for several years. We've co-edited together 2 multilingual digital books. But most of all, Diana has been for me, in the truest sense of the word, a true mentor. I've seen Diana have a similar impact on my own students when they read the archive and the repertoire for the first time, but on artists, activists, and academics throughout the world, in Brazil, in Mexico, here in the United States. It's hard to overstate Diana Taylor's impact on theater and performance, not only in New York City, but in the United States and across the Americas. Diana is the person who taught me that activism can be not only the object of scholarship, but that scholarship can be its own form of activism. She is the one who taught me how to work in the undercommons of this very colonial institution of the university in order to enact actual change. Through the Hemispheric Institute, she has taught all of us, artists, activists, and scholars, how to sit together on a long table and make good trouble. She has taught us how to take seriously a multiplicity of ways of knowing, how to think across scholarship and performance, across art making and theory, but also across different languages, different heritages, different ethnicities, and to all get together and make art, make scholarship, make activism as a community. Congratulations, Diana, on the well-deserved Edwin Booth Award, and congratulations on the huge impact that you've had on myself, but on the larger community of theater and performance, not only in New York City, but across the Americas and frankly, across the world. Un abrazo.
Hi, Diana. I just wanted to say thank you for being an extraordinary scholar and teacher, and for teaching me about theories of spectatorship and artivism. You changed my life. You taught me how to think and to just get going. So I'm honored to be your student, and congratulations on your award.
My name is Luis Rincon Alba. I'm currently a PhD candidate in the Performance Studies Department at NYU, and I have the honor to be a student and an advisee of Diana Taylor's. I am here to celebrate that she is receiving the Edwin Booth Award from the Theater and Performance PhD program at the CUNY Graduate Center. Congratulations, Diana. I first was introduced to your work more than 12 years ago when I was still living in Colombia. I cannot express the many ways in which that reading the archive and the repertoire for the first time, affected my life. I can say that it shaped my path in such a deep way that I am here because of that first reading. Thank you very much for that. I want to join all the people who today come together to celebrate your work. And I want to say thank you, because in your work, in your life, in your support, in your guidance, in the institutions that you have built and shaped, I found a home. Thank you very much, Diana. Te quiero mucho y felicitaciones.
¿Qué tal, Diana?
Te saludo desde Coatepec, Veracruz. También saludo a los estudiantes y colegas de CUNY, a quienes agradezco esta invitación de participar en este importante homenaje a tu trayectoria y también a esta celebración a la que nos invitas a reflexionar sobre cómo podemos seguir trabajando, tendiendo puentes entre la academia, el arte y el activismo. Yo quisiera hacer un poco de memoria sobre ya 23 años, Diana, que nos conocemos. A partir de ese encuentro del Latin American Studies Association en el 99, cuando fui a escucharte leer una ponencia muy divertida, por cierto, sobre Walter Mercado, ¿te acuerdas, no? Yo después de tu ponencia me acerqué a ti, a quien no conocía personalmente todavía, y me sorprendió que me invitaras a tomar un café para platicarme sobre el proyecto del Instituto Hemisférico de Performance y Política. Yo estaba impresionado por la visión que estabas presentándome sobre este proyecto de largo alcance al que me invitaste para ser parte del primer encuentro que se realizó en el año 2000 en Río de Janeiro. Eso para mí fue un momento decisivo en mi carrera. Yo estaba realmente empezando en el ámbito de la academia y entonces que tú me, digamos, abrieras las puertas a este proyecto que ha influido en la vida de tantas personas fue tan importante que no solo, digamos, orientó mucho de lo que es la investigación que hago actualmente y el trabajo que realizo con mis estudiantes, sino que también me permitió conocer a un universo de colegas y también de perspectivas tanto teóricas como políticas y artísticas. Esto es algo que yo agradezco en lo personal, Diana, que muchos de nosotros compartimos en este andar juntos en momentos, especialmente ahora en el año 2021, que el planeta y la humanidad ha estado ya más de un año sufriendo por la situación de la pandemia y que como preguntas, ¿qué podemos hacer en momentos en que pareciera que no hay nada que hacer o que no podemos? Yo creo que con esta última publicación que has hecho en la que estás invitándonos a estar presentes, es ahí donde podemos hacer mucho. Estar presentes con nuestros estudiantes, acompañarlos en sus procesos de trabajo reflexivo y crítico y también invitarlos a esta visión que nos enseñaste desde hace muchos años de vincular arte, academia y activismo. Estar presentes y escuchar son gestos, junto con el gesto del acompañamiento, que son vitales, son realmente gestos que parecieran modestos, pero que pueden dejar huellas muy profundas. En ese sentido, pues te agradezco muchísimo, Diana, celebro tu trayectoria, tu amistad y pues te deseo larga vida y muchos proyectos más de aquí en adelante. Nos vemos muy pronto.
Pavão misterioso, pássaro formoso, tudo é mistério nesse teu voar. Mas se eu corresse assim, tantos céus assim, muita história eu tinha pra contar. Pavão misterioso, pássaro formoso, tudo é mistério nesse teu voar. assim. Muita história eu tinha pra contar. Pavão misterioso nessa cauda aberta em leque. Me guarda, moleque, de eterno brincar. Me poupa do vexame de morrer tão moço. Muita coisa ainda quero olhar. Pavão misterioso, pássaro formoso, tudo é mistério nesse teu voar. Mas se eu corresse assim, tantos céus assim, muita história eu tinha pra contar. Pavão misterioso, meu pássaro formoso, no escuro dessa noite, me ajuda a cantar. Derrama essas faíscas, despeja esse trovão, desmancha isso tudo, não, que não é certo, não. Pavão misterioso, pássaro formoso, conde raivoso, não tarda a chegar. Não temas, minha donzela, nossa sorte nessa guerra. Eles são muitos, mas não podem voar.
Diana, congratulations on winning the Edwin Booth Award. I'm so happy for you. I'm one of Diana's students at Performance Studies NYU, and I mean, there are a lot of different things that can be said about Diana. One of the things that I like about her so much is that she is just simultaneously the biggest sweetheart and the biggest badass you've ever met, which I think is a great line to walk. She's this iron butterfly that comes in and interrogates just everything, from one's own personal responsibility to one's culpability to one's capacity to make change. She makes me a better student, and that's why I'm so thrilled to be studying with her. I think it's interesting that she's winning this theater award, because theater to me is something that is best done collaboratively, and there's this sentence in Diana's latest book, Presente, that I think really speaks to that, and it's a quotation attributed to Jesusa Rodriguez, and it says, "I am myself when I am walking and talking with others." The idea being that it's only in relation and in working with others that can you really be anything close to oneself, and of course that you're never an individual, you're a part of a community. And when I think of Diana, I can't only just think of Diana. I think of the social, sensual body that is Diana, that includes Jesusa Rodriguez, Split Britches, George Emilio Sanchez, her family, her wonderful husband and kids, her cute dog, all of her students. it's kind of never ending. Diana is, to my mind, never alone, but always in collaboration with so many incredible people, including the Hemispheric Institute. She is energized and energizing. She's a collaborative artist through and through. Even though she possesses all the skills to be an auteur, she refuses that solitary way of being and working, and instead surrounds herself with incredible people. And I think it takes a lot of nerve and self-possession to be able to do that. And I just respect her so much. And I'm really looking forward to this next phase of her career and the sort of wonderful things that she's going to create next. Congratulations again. Bye.
I am so honored to offer a few words about the amazing Diana Taylor. Diana has been part of my life for more than a quarter of a century. We first met in the air in the fall of 1995, seated across the aisle from each other on a small, very bumpy flight from New Hampshire to New York City. She was teaching at Dartmouth, and I had just become a program officer at the Ford Foundation, building a nascent initiative on crossing borders, revitalizing area studies. Diana's charisma, her presence, if you will, immediately drew me. Though I'm usually too shy to talk to total strangers, we struck up an animated conversation, what would be the first of many, as we lingered at the baggage carousel, about, among other things, performance and politics, teaching and collaboration. A few years later, when Diana joined the faculty at NYU, I was delighted that she would be closer to home. Our conversations became less abstract, and before long, I recommended the first Ford Foundation grant to create the Hemispheric Institute, the first Hemi grant ever. I remember my anxiety as I tried to explain performance studies at the Ford Foundation officers meeting, and my great relief when the grant was approved. In the first few years, the Hemi faced many challenges as it developed new conceptual and pedagogical frameworks, trying to make things work in countries with minimal IT infrastructure. This was in 1998, remember, and developing relationships with a myriad of unusual partners throughout the region in 3 languages. In the years that followed, Diana led the Hemi as it grew into a flourishing, vibrant institution, an example I often cite when potential grantees ask me who is doing groundbreaking, really interesting work. Together with her many partners, Diana and the Hemi created courses, workshops, artistic interventions, and of course the encuentros, each of which pushed the boundaries of scholarship, arts, and activism in innovative, sometimes startling ways. For the past decade at the Henry Luce Foundation, I've been very happy to support the Hemi again, this time for projects on religion and politics in the Americas, and more recently for an all-too-timely project on the Central American humanitarian and migration crisis. That effort took on even greater urgency last year with the pandemic, and Diana and her colleagues responded quickly to those challenges with another project providing food and medical resources to undocumented communities here in New York City. Diana is now embarked on new projects, no surprise to anyone who knows her well. I'm eager to see where this next phase takes her. But most of all, I'm eager to continue our friendship, our meals and drinks and walks, and of course, our talks. Congratulations, Diana, for such inspiring work, and thank you for your friendship.
Bueno, quiero empezar por esta foto, que es una preciosura de risas, de complicidad, con esas camisetas que diseñé y que produjimos juntas en New Hampshire y que fue el comienzo de nuestra D&D Productions, que creo que ha seguido durante mucho tiempo y que va a seguir porque nos lo merecemos. Recuerdo que nos conocimos en Kansas, qué locura conocerse en Kansas. Nos conocimos en Kansas y fue un flash. Nos fuimos juntas en aquel congreso y en aquella ciudad que parecía el desierto de las películas de cowboys. Nos fuimos juntas a comprarnos unos trajes de novio a una casa donde vendían trajes de boda usados. Nos compramos 2 smokings y nos vestimos así durante todo el congreso. Fue un pacto, un sello de nuestra complicidad, de nuestro encuentro, que es para siempre y desde siempre. Así lo siento yo. Mira, llevo un collar que me regalaste en Colombia, que me parece una preciosura, que lo uso muchísimo y que te acerca muchísimo a mí, que me protege, claro. Y llevo este anillo que me regalaste en Buenos Aires, en San Telmo, en una galería, un día que llovía. Son 2 cosas que te acercan muchísimo. Y bueno, muy orgullosa de vos, de este reconocimiento que reconoce un aspecto tuyo fundamental, que es algo que creaste, que habitaste, que produjiste, que teorizaste y que es un aporte extraordinario tuyo a la cultura académica, que es tu militancia académica, tu compromiso. Muy orgullosa de vos. Bueno, fuera de eso, mandarte un abrazo que atraviese todos los mares del mundo, decirte que te quiero muchísimo, que espero que nos tomemos juntas pronto unos buenos vinos. Salud.
Dearest Diana, Diana Caridad, I want to join with everyone in congratulating you. Mazel tov, felicitations, and so much love for you for this really well-deserved award. You have brought so much to so many, and especially taught us how to think about hard things with joy and creativity and activism. And I congratulate you on your most recent amazing book, Presente. And I am delighted to be able to be part of a celebration for you. You and I feel like our sisters walking through all of this together and finding our academic lives as platforms for the things we care most about and believe in. So lots of love and hugs and many, many more years of wonderful work together. And as you forge the path for so many of us. Thank you.
Querida Diana, estamos aquí todos reunidos pensando en ti, recordándote y reafirmando qué importante ha sido tu presencia en la vida del grupo, cómo has sido un acompañante y un estímulo para nuestro estudio y para profundizar en los caminos que tenemos trazados. Y has colaborado en conectarnos con otras realidades y con otros mundos. Por eso ahora nosotros estamos muy contentos que te hayan ofrecido este reconocimiento. Te lo mereces porque tu trabajo no solamente ha contribuido a la cultura en Nueva York, sino en todas las comunidades artísticas y performáticas de toda la América. Estamos aquí juntos en esta pantalla líquida, tratando de sentir que estamos conectados contigo. Y aquí estamos juntos trabajando también para preparar nuestras acciones y nuestras performances, porque tenemos mucho que decir en estos terribles momentos que vivimos, no solo por la pandemia, sino por la situación que está viviendo nuestro país. Y tenemos esperanza. Y por eso ahora te queremos celebrar cantándote una de nuestras canciones más queridas, que va desde nuestro corazón, de todos los Yuyashkani.
Yeah.
Besos. Y ahora le cantamos.
Angrai kuta kukmanta kamuni
Kikilang nyo pahinara. Yana pa rin awa ng chispak, chisito ko ng pacha. Jairai kwa pamuiki, aswanga lingwai tatarisai. Jairai kwa pamuiki, aswanga lingwai tatarisai.
Ciara yawai mayu patapi karta buang nispa. Cierto chun, karta buang kanki. Loru chai, loru chai, loru chai, loru chai, loru chai, loru chai, loro. Ciara yawai mayu patapi karta buang nispa. Cierto chun, karta buang kanki. Loro chai, loro chai, loro chai, loro chai, loro chai, loro chai, loro.
Congratulations, Diana, on the Edwin Booth Award. This is Lily Mengesha, and I wanted to send a note of gratitude, and I wrote something for you. So you are right, Diana. There are so many ways that something can be done in the face of what feels like unending injustice between the multiple migrant crossings on Mexico's multiple borders to the 3 million people incarcerated in the U.S. What is to be done? And I want to offer in the frame of an acrostic poem the love and possibility that your research and activism has offered me and so many others as we try to keep a pulse on hope. D is for determination in the face of devastation. You are one who refuses to say, well, those people in power are too powerful, and instead you act upon your own power and your own positionality to say, there are ways to be in solidarity, to stand next to and beside people as they move through various kinds of crossings and difficulties, that you will go to the street, that you will trespass, that you will risk your name and your privilege. You are determined. I is for imaginative. Diana, you've dreamed up an entire institute for the Americas, called it Hemispheric, and offered a way for activists and artists to find each other and find a name for the kinds of worlds yet to be built. And I move in the wake of your creative vision, and I'm forever grateful for it. A is for accountability. When conflict arises, you do not hide in corners, and instead you face it head on. You write about it, you describe it, and you remind us that conflict and accountability are what make a community, rather than breaking up a community, right? That we need accountability in order to build trust and relationships. N is for both noteworthy and normal. Clearly, you are a noteworthy cosmic star, Diana, and you also remain of this earth, and you remind me anyway that you are human and that you remain sort of the people. A is for attention, the most valuable currency. For when people feel unheard, you always seem to say, with your words and your actions, I'm here and I'm listening. So, congratulations on this award, Diana, for all the ways that you are determined, imaginative, accountable, noteworthy, and normal, and attentive. This is so well deserved.
I feel so deeply honored to be celebrating Diana Taylor tonight. It has been an incredible journey to work alongside her this past few years, and I cannot even begin to say all the ways in which her practice has influenced my own. I've been again and again amazed by the ways in which Diana has found to hack the system from within, reshaping the university space as to create and provoke conversations that otherwise wouldn't exist. I'm inspired by Diana's commitment to education as a form of activism, of bringing people together in the here and now to create change. So thank you, Diana, and congratulations on receiving this award. It is such a privilege to be working and thinking in and about the here and now with you.
I am thrilled to be making this video in celebration of Diana Taylor being conferred the Edwin Booth Award. Over the past few years, I have been fortunate to work with Diana in a variety of capacities, as her student, advisee, teaching assistant, and more. To be continued. I consider Diana one of my biggest role models within and outside of academia, precisely because activism has always been inseparable from her scholarship. Her commitment to getting things done, especially in her words, when it seems as if nothing can be done, but doing nothing is not an option. And her practice of walking and talking with others, of being presente, is inspiring. But what I find so unique about Diana is her genuine interest and generosity in and dedication to working with her students and helping them find their own fertile paths. I see in her teaching and advising a commitment not only to developing critical thinking and practices outside of disciplinary restraints, but also to encouraging students to think about, and more importantly, do, public scholarship. I remember that in one of my earliest conversations with Diana about my work, she asked me, "What kind of impact would you like to make?" This was a question I had heard many times before and was accustomed to answering along the lines of a research or field contribution, but I knew the question meant something different coming from Diana. The poet Aracelis Girmay in an interview talks about questions that hold gravity and weight. Girmay says of her conversations with Nikki Finney, in her questions, Nikki helps me to ask, what is my motor? What is my fuel? My conversations with Diana always point me in this direction, to consider impact within the understanding of a humanities that always has to be public. This is what makes her not only an educator, but a mentor, to me and no doubt to countless others and generations before. And this mentorship, of course, is not only something she extends to her students. If you step into Diana's office, she will listen to you and talk and think with you. If you send her an email, she will respond or connect you with someone who can help you, regardless of whether you are her student or not. While her accolades are many, her impacts on the fields of theater and performance studies and Latin American studies and others indisputable, and her contributions to social justice and politically engaged culture and performance in the Americas long-lasting, as founding director of the Hemispheric Institute of Performance and Politics. It is the very human touch that Diana brings to all of her working relationships that sets her apart, and the little gestures and big questions she offers that we remember and continue to carry with us. Congratulations, Diana. We are all so excited to see what you do next and to continue walking, talking, thinking, and doing with you.
Hola, Diana. Congratulations on this wonderful award. Big hug from me to you as a friend, but also big hug from the entire Department of Performance Studies on this another wonderful occasion celebrating your work and your dedication to the fields of performance studies, performance art, performance and activism. Thank you so much. Big hug, and I'll see you in a moment at the party.
It is such an honor for me to be here with you all today to honor Diana Taylor for her extraordinary work as a mentor and scholar in establishing the field of performance studies. I have known Diana for over 13 years, and she has been just an incredible influence and force as a mentor and friend to me since the time I was in graduate school to now as a faculty member at Columbia University. She has inspired so many of us to always work at the intersection of scholarship, activism, and artistic practice. And that is something that I am forever grateful for learning from Diana Taylor and using that as also an inspiration and driving force in my own work. And so with you all today, I am so thrilled that we can honor and recognize Diana's incredible achievements throughout the last decades of her influence on so many generations of scholars and activists and artists who have come after her. And so I am just here with you all to send our love and gratitude and to say thank you, Diana. We all love you so much.
Discurso para las masas izquierdas. Derechas.
Diana, congratulations. So happy for you. What a well-deserved award. I wish I could be there with you. But I'm sending a video in which I say a few words. This is like my third attempt because I keep making them and going on and on and on about how amazing you are. And then they're always too long. I go to try to send them. So I'm going to be short. You're amazing. You have been so influential on my life and my scholarship. I don't think I would be able to think without your work. But the question of like how is scholarship activism? I was thinking about that and thinking about how one of the most incredible, I think, gifts of your work is that you have also been very clear that activism is a kind of scholarship, that the body in space knows what it knows, and putting the body in space and in situations where change can happen is part of is a way of thinking and a way of knowing, and trying to write from what can be thought when we have embodied practice on the street, in the square, in the theater, in the gallery, embodied practice sort of changing, making our worlds. I think that the best person to probably criticize what is, right, is a person who, like you, has a real faith. I guess faith is a funny word. Maybe it's not faith. Maybe it's sense of promise, really, of what can be, a determination, a perseverance about how performance can make a difference. And you have done that by also just opening for us. So many openings of hemispheres, openings of the variety of questions that we can ask, the variety of artists that we can engage, the people that you bring around the table together, the capacity of the table. And again, just this sort of ebullient, I guess, joy in maybe even sometimes the most oddball remark, like that there is no question that's off the table. Every single question, every strange statement, every crazy idea, you have this, like, great, let's think about that. Well, let's bring that in. Let's see how what might we make with something we haven't thought yet, with some gesture we haven't made yet but might make. And you make the space for making those things, odd as they may be. So I'm very grateful, and I think the Academy is a much better place for the open doors that you have exhibited relative to it. I wish I could be there with you. Many, many, many congratulations and kudos and love.
I'm Lois Weaver.
And I'm Peggy Shaw.
And this is our tribute to Diana. We're out on the road, and because Peggy does all the driving, as usual, I'm going to do all the talking, as usual. And it's kind of appropriate that we're out on the road, because when we think about you, Diana, we celebrate you as a traveler, and you've given us the gift of travel. You've helped us travel across borders, across hemispheres, across practices, across even politics. And you've also given us the gift of time. You've taught us how to take time, to come together, not for 1 day or 2 days or even 3 days, but to come together for as much as 10 days, to sit together, to exchange, to talk together, to have conversations. And you are a gatherer, and we love that about you. You have gathered us in your family, and you've gathered us in the encuentros, and you've gathered all of us, not just academics, not just artists, not just activists, but all of us in the same room so that we could exchange and we could learn from each other. And you gathered our work and the work of loads of other artists and put it into that amazing resource, HIDVL, so that not only is our work documented, but it's also a resource to others and to each other. So you are a traveler, you're a gatherer, and Diana, you're a real change maker, and we love you.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank you so much for the Edwin Booth Award and for the celebration that the graduate students from CUNY have organized. Especially thanks to Maria Litvan, who has been the energy and the person behind all of the wonderful events that are taking place today. I am incredibly grateful. I feel very, very lucky and very honored. So thank you. One of the things that struck me in the tributes that I just heard was the comment that I was never alone. And I love that because I've always felt acompañada. I've always felt that all of you were with me and keeping me company and celebrating, being creative and getting onto all the beautiful trouble that I think is so very necessary now and since I remember being a human being. I thank you also for your very deep friendships. I have to say, some of the things you said made me cry. I was incredibly moved. Another thing that I heard was a theme about making space. And part of what my whole life project, I guess, has been about was to help make livable worlds in and, of course, beyond academia, and not just for myself, but for other people. And part of that has been, you know, all of the relationships that we've developed over time with each other. I've always, as you know, been very inspired by the Zapatistas, and one of their mottos is un mundo donde quepan muchos mundos, a world in which many worlds live and fit, where there's room for all of us. And that has been, you know, an ongoing theme of mine. And one of the reasons that, you know, I've started things like the Institute for Women in Social Change, and then later HEMI, and the things I'm thinking about in the future. So there has to be room for all of us. The other thing I'm reminded of is that academia, especially since I'm in academia, was not made for people like us, you know, for people who, starting off in the 80s, right, for women, or for people who were, you know, of different backgrounds, ethnic groups or whatever. And we've had to make that room. And now you and my students and their students are continuing to make that room. And we have to, you know, just keep pushing until academia becomes a place we can be proud to participate in, and also, you know, in the other places that we inhabit and live in. So it's been my world, if you want, making fantasy, right? That the Zapatistas, again, are right in demanding nunca más un mundo sin nosotros, never again a world without us. So to fulfill this vision for them and for all of us requires constant, beautiful struggle. And the struggle for social justice, as we know, never ends. There's going to be no end to it. It's something we're going to do our whole lives. And I've been in this struggle since I was a very young person. Frankly, I never knew I had a choice, but I had to push back against what I felt was very deep injustice. And I have continued to push back. One of the things that's made my struggle and my journey so much fun and so incredibly enriching has been that you have been there with me. A lot of you have been at every single one of the different events or, you know, projects that are about trying to make more space for people in the world, more ways of being, more ways of thinking, more ways of acknowledging each other. So with my fellow travelers, such as you, I've had a lot of fun. We've always worked very hard, but we always have time for our little, you know, glass of wine and our talks and our walks. And I just feel incredibly privileged to have lived the life I have and with you all in it. So again, thank you. I am deeply moved and honored, and I want to keep fighting the good fight with all of you. Thank you.
As a long-standing tradition, the annual ceremony of the Booth Award is conceived and produced by the student body of the PhD program in theater and performance at the Graduate Center. The award has served as a bridge between scholars and practitioners in our theater community in New York City. This year, we came up with the idea of provocations, where we invite short videos that respond to the theme of activism within academia by translating academic scholarship into forms that encourage constructive dialogues with a wider audience. We gathered a cluster of students in our program to reflect on how their works engage with the issues vital to Diana Taylor's scholarship, and how Taylor's scholarship expands the conceptual and methodological horizons for their scholarly investigations. We met every Friday, brainstormed ideas, and helped one another develop the provocations. These meetings have yielded stimulating conversations. Today, 4 participants will showcase their works: Andrew Goldberg, Esther Neff, Janet Soyadmoko, and Jessica Alpabam. Without further ado, we hope you enjoy these provocations and invite you to stay for the conversation afterwards between the participants and Diana Taylor.
I am thinking about the classroom as a scene of cognition. This phrase comes from the title of an essay by Professor Taylor about 16th century Amerindian performance and the colonial archive that I always look forward to teaching as part of my world theater history course. Part of the reason why this text is so meaningful to me is that it not only serves as a vivid introduction to those performance traditions for my students, but the essay ushers in a whole new set of questions into the classroom. In the essay, Professor Taylor argues that what we know cannot be separated from how we know. Considering how we know something demands a degree of self-reflexivity on the part of the students, inviting them to become interested not just in learning about supposed ontological truths, but to think about epistemology, to think about the languages, histories, and institutional structures that have led us to being in a classroom studying these performances together, and then to apply that thinking to issues that matter most to them. This year has challenged so many of our assumptions and practices of pedagogy. As most of our scenes of cognition migrated to the digital realm of the Zoom classroom, I have never missed and felt so acutely how much teaching itself is an embodied practice. As we begin to imagine what comes next, I wonder which practices of pedagogy have we learned to let go of in the past year, and which need renewed commitment in this exciting moment of engaged student activism.
Being in a place communicates a very different sense of the situation than looking down on the model. Being in a place communicates a very different sense of the situation than looking down on the model. Being in a place communicates a very different sense of the situation than looking down on the model. Now, being in a place communicates a very different sense of the situation than looking down on the model. Now, here and in many parts of the world as we speak, I can't think past that. Rooted as I am to place, suddenly restored as practice. I too am a part of this scenario now. I have accompanied them here. My eyes look straight down, mimetically rather than reflectively through downturned eyes. I do not see really, I imagine, I presenciar, I presence as an active verb. Embodied cognition, neuroscientists call this. We in the theater have always understood it as mimesis and empathy. We learn and absorb by mirroring other people. I participate, not in the events, but in the transmission of the affect emanating from the events. My presencing offers me no sense of control, no fiction of understanding, no fiction of understanding.
Professor Taylor, several years ago, an artist and researcher collective in Indonesia started an artistic research examining how Indonesian people have produced and transmitted knowledge by making traditional hot sauce. Despite the interest in the sauce ingredients, they also focus on the embodied practice implied in the process of making the sauce. I also heard another artist collective in the Southeast Asian region investigated how squatting became a lens to see or to trace back knowledge production and transmission in pre-colonial time and what remains applicable in the present time. As one of my research interests is citizenship, I'm fascinated by the possibilities of how we can expand such research and examination to the context of performing citizenship, expressing political aspiration in demonstration or protest, for example, or in any social practices related to performing citizenship. I find your conception of repertoire helps me to find the answer. I guess my further provocation or question on this will be how we can see repertoire to understand the body not only as a memory and a knowledge container from the past and present, but also as a site of pre-enactment for wider changes in the years to come. And by pre-enactment, I refer to Oliver Marchard's idea of pre-enactment as an artistic anticipation of a political event to come. And to me, it's akin to rehearsal of social change. To make it clear, I'm reading once again my provocation here. How do we see repertoire to understand the body not only as a memory and knowledge container from the past and present, but also a site of pre-enactment for wider changes in the years to come? Thank you.
Dear Diana, welcome to my mind, and thank you for filling it with thoughts on the roles that we as scholars perform as organizers and activists, both in and out of our institutions of higher learning. Days after receiving your invitation to respond to the call to think about how our scholarship can be formulated as a form of activism, I entered the Zoom room to hear you speak about Presente. And there, among questions from the audience, came forward an important articulation that you have been sharing. The archive and the repertoire was never meant to be considered as a binary, but as a concatenation that animates our work. My mind immediately went to our shared friend, collaborator, and co-conspirator Marcela Fuentes and her book Performance Constellations, which, as we understand, you having mentored the project, me having just read it, the three of us now existing in what Mar would describe as thinking in community, focuses upon, and these are her sentences that I use, digital networks as vehicles of communication toward a future street mobilization and the entanglement between body-based performance and digital networking. I find myself returning and returning and returning to one of the spaces Mar identifies for this flowing through of work performance with and beyond digital networks, the hashtag. That is, how might it be an answer to a question you posed in 2016 for the 50th volume of TDR Performance and as History? Your question: how and when does the always there-ness of the repertoire become mobilized to erupt the here and now? In personal correspondences, I sent Mar the following. I find myself newly invested in the function, potentialities, and the performance of hashtags. That is, the hashtag provides an online archive, an indexing of subject, thought, content that circulates throughout the internet. It articulates the performative utterance of Austin, and it also generates performance scores that become repertoires of performed defiance against state powers. How might the hashtag inspire new modes, methods, and forms of our scholarship? What are the possibilities of us as academics embracing the hashtag to support the work of activists and artists we are entangling our networks with? How might we employ them to perform acts of transference that breach the private section of the digital world, the academic database, and move us and our work to the streets, to performance, to change? Mar, with a dramaturgically generous response, shared that answers begin to be found in the scholarship of women like Sarah J. Jackson, Moya Bailey, and Brooke Foucault Wells, and their book #Activism, where they clearly and compellingly lay out the usefulness and force of hashtags. And Mar sagely shared, and these are her words back to me, we need to be able to differentiate and to have a more nuanced engagement with these tools that go beyond the yes or no, or analyze their efficacy, detaching them from precisely the constellations they enable or propel or support. And so, as a means and a way to play with this tool and to celebrate your work and join in provocations, I offer the following score. Thank you, Diana.
Well, I just wanted to thank you all so much for these wonderful provocations. It was just a thrill to see them and to see you thinking and moving and working with my work. It's an enormous tribute, and I'm very grateful to you. One of the things that struck me was that there's a very clear line, if you want, that ties the 4 different provocations together. And that is, of course, the topic of transmission, the different kinds of acts of transfer that you all are thinking about. Andy, when you start off with teaching, is, of course, an embodied act of transfer. When Esther, you start doing the work with that beautiful dance and singing in this lovely garden, being there and participating, embodied, knowledge and these acts of transfer. Then we go into the idea of the pre-enactment, the rehearsals for change that take place through the body, the things that we carry in our body that make alternate futures possible. And then, of course, we have Jess's ideas about transmission on several different levels. One, on the level of mentoring, on the level of these collectivities that we as scholars and artists and activists create through our work. And then also, of course, with hashtags as another form of establishing a kind of a transfer of connectivity and of knowledge. So it just was very wonderful to see how it goes from pedagogy to the most kind of recent things having to do even with current protests, Black Lives Matter. I would even say the strikes, the graduate student strikes that are taking place even right now as we're speaking, right? So it's a gamut of allowing us to put these different forms of transfer and connectivity into conversation with each other. So I was very moved and just incredibly honored to hear what you had to say. So I think I'll just start in the order in which these provocations were presented right now. And they start, of course, with Andy's wonderful idea about the concept from my piece, Scenes of Cognition, of the what we know cannot be separated from the how we know it, right? And that has been a theme in my work, I would say probably since I started writing, although I haven't gone back to reread those earlier pieces, but I'm sure it has to be there. And it was always, I think this is one of the things that train us as theater people, is that transmission in the theater takes place through embodied practice. We have the scripts, we have all these other things that we rely on, but and that are also in their own ways, of course, forms of transmission. We read Shakespeare and those texts are forms of transmission. But in theater, we have this other form of transmission, which is of course embodied practice, that we get up night after night and perform these different pieces. And so it's so clear, because I was trained in theater, that the what I knew was always connected to how I knew it and how I could transmit it. So in the theoretical realm, I don't think in my work that's been any different. I've always been very aware of how things pass through me. Teaching very much as an embodied practice. In fact, I do a lot of rehearsal work with my students, even my graduate students, before we get into our seminars, because I think we need to get our bodies involved in the meaning-making systems to make them truly, truly meaningful, and also to create the bonds that we need among us as a group to be able to work together, not just a bunch of talking heads sitting around the table, right? So it's been very important to me. The other thing that I liked so much about your piece, Andy, was it ties a scene of cognition into our current practice right now with Zoom, which has been such a different form of transmission, right? I mean, we've got our bodies out. We are again those talking heads now on little screens, not even just sitting around the table. And our bodies have been really left out of this form of knowing and transmission of knowledge. In fact, my students and I on Zoom stood up because a lot of them had mentioned that they had never seen each other from the shoulders down. So it was like, well, let's stand up for a minute. Let's just look at each other. So that was a very important thing. The other thing that I was very struck by, Andy, in your piece was when you're contrasting our very isolated forms of knowing and teaching right now through Zoom, through these little boxes and systems that feel like they're constricting us in so many ways, and the things that are taking place on the street. You know, starting with Black Lives Matter, protests in the summer, and pretty continuously after that, we've had a lot of very major things taking place on the streets, not to mention the Capitol, you know, insurrection on January 6th, right? So the stuff taking place on the street is another way in which we are reminded constantly that our bodies matter, that we are clamoring for some kind of change, whether it's, I would say, very progressive and affirmative about human rights, social rights that the Black Lives Matter movement has been struggling for, or what I think is this, you know, very, you know, as a Latin Americanist, I'm very used to it, right? But the coup, the insurrection, the challenge to any kind of process or democratic system of government. So we've seen it all. So it seems like a disconnect that our teaching has taken place in this very confined way, while our activism has just exploded on the streets. And I think that there's a lot there that we could continue to think about and talk about. And I'm hoping that when I get through the 4 little responses, that maybe we can have a conversation about any of these aspects that seem interesting to all of you. And Esther, there's nothing as powerful, I would say, to show this concept of being in place, what it means to be grounded, what it means to make theory as a form of practice with our feet on the ground, as your dance piece with the garden, or that beautiful piece of land that that you were dancing on and planting and so forth. It was a very beautiful reminder, I guess I would say, about the things that tie us to Earth, right? The things that go beyond our separation, if you want, as how we think of ourselves as humans who are not tied to the Earth in some way. The planting, the transmission of life through that seed, that form of that little plant growing, it just seemed to me to inspire, especially in this moment of such confinement, a really renewed sense of hope and of connectivity that we need to reaffirm, I think. The relational forms, I would say, also your relationship to the Earth, your relationship to your dance partner and singing partner, the way in which we make this connectivity. And again, I was very struck by the singing and the dancing, and it takes me back a little bit to Andy's reflection with that form of transmission I talk about in that piece, where the Aztecs, who those images are showing the Aztecs, learned their form of their educational system was about singing and dancing. Things were transmitted through bodies, and some through the codices, but that was very, very minor part of what they knew. So dancing was a recognized form of knowledge transmission, as was singing. So it seemed like a really beautiful way to tie those two together. So it was a grounded theory. It was an example of very beautiful, excuse me, example of low theory, of theory that takes place in the here and now and not at 30,000 feet above sea level. So I was very moved by that. Jonah, I was very struck by your piece for a couple of different reasons. Not only was it interesting, but it reminded me of one of the things that got me thinking really about the repertoire a long time ago, which had to do with cooking and the kind of knowledges that got transmitted through cooking. I come from a long line of cooks, and my kids are cooks, and now my two little granddaughters are cooks. So there's a huge line of cooking that goes through my family, and the things I learned by making recipes that my mother made, my grandmother made, and teaching them and transmitting them through practice down to my children and my grandchildren has been a source of amazing joy for me, actually. So when you start off with a hot sauce and thinking about this recipe that gets transmitted, I was immediately won over. And then I liked very much how you went immediately from the product, the hot sauce in that little jar, to the practice of the making, to the way that we learn so much, we transmit so much through the doing. And the example that you gave about squatting and how our whole body practices also transmit knowledge, a sense of identity, an attitude, as you say, in the face of colonization, I found also very interesting and very telling. The piece that you're interested about in citizenship, I think, is very pertinent in terms of the repertoire, which is how I think that you're using that concept, which I think citizenship will, or entails a set of practices that are very culturally specific. So, for example, practices that you would see amongst people, say, in Argentina, would not necessarily be the ones that we would see in people, citizens or making claims for citizenship in Mexico, or say in the United States, just to stick to the Americas for a second. So I think it's very important what you're doing, which is to be attentive to how people perform their citizenships and what different societies or nations ask of us in that performance of citizenship. I also think it's very interesting, especially if we're thinking back to January 6th and the insurrection here in the United States, the way that different constituencies, if you want, are making different claims to citizenship through different kinds of performances. So the performances, if you want, of the people who entered into the Capitol building were very distinctive, if you want, in their form of embodiment. I think if you look at any specific event like that in any country, you'll see how different parts of the body politic, if you want, are performing their claim, and how culturally specific those performances are. I think it's very revealing and very interesting. In my work, I've done a lot of work on the transmission of protest movements, especially movements having to do with the big one I started with a long time ago, which was the mothers of Plaza de Mayo in Argentina making a claim for the reappearance with life of their children who had been disappeared. Now that meme, as I explore in my Presente book, has traveled all over the world. Everybody is now recognizes that meme in its own distinctive form. But the performance of citizenship that the Madres enacted in Argentina back in the late 70s was not replicated in other places because it wouldn't have had any meaning. That headscarf that they wore would have had no meaning in another country, but something else did, right? So the photo did, the chant, and the identification as mothers were things that were able to be transmitted. So it's interesting what can be transmitted, what helps, what travels, and what is so culturally specific that it really will not be taken up by another group. I was also very interested in your question about how the past and the present, that in a way I kind of argue is what makes up the repertoire in terms of these practices that have been transmitted sometimes for generations, right? That we continue to transmit. And then how do these become part of the future? In a way, I would say that these are already there, I guess, to be redundant. In my Presente book, I talk about a concept that Leda Martins, a very important Afro-Brazilian scholar, puts forward about spiral time. But this is also a very important indigenous notion of time too. The time is not just linear. That's a very Western notion of time. So the past is always with us, and the past is making our present possible, right? Without this reservoir, I guess, as you call it, of gestures, of scenarios that we carry within us, the present and the future, if we can think of it in that kind of linearity, would make no sense. So they are all of a piece. And I think you said it really well yourself. I think you, in a way, kind of answered your own question when you say that these are rehearsals for social change. And I think that's what we can call them, right? Everything is a rehearsal, and it will come forward in another time in a maybe slightly different shape. But they're not gestures or scenarios or acts that we haven't seen before. We just perhaps haven't seen them in that same configuration. So I would say that those are always with us. And Jess, yours was so interesting. And I also love the Dear Diana form of address because it puts us into the letter. So we had the kind of the pedagogical Andy in a classroom, you know, we had Esther in the garden, and then we had Janet on top of a table, I guess, in some interesting place that I couldn't exactly define. And then we have yours as a letter. And I thought that was a beautiful way to start. And thank you for reminding people that archive and repertoire is not a binary. I keep saying that to people, and I don't know how it came across, but maybe because of the title. So I kept saying, you know, if I would rename it, I would say the archive and then the repertoire. And my editor, Ken Wissaker, said, "Thank God you never thought of calling it that." Right? So that was not a go, but at least it shows my adamant insistence that it's not a binary, it's a part of a very complex system of transmission. I would say there's a lot of other things within those systems. I would say DNA is another form of transmission. It's another, I would say the visual arena, the digital, are also these complex forms of transmission. So it's not one or the other by any stretch, and they work together. So I was also very touched by the fact that you start off, or you are in a deep conversation with Marcela Fuentes, who I mentored, and I was her dissertation advisor, and I have been her friend and her colleague for so long. And I think transmission is also very much about that. It's about the lineages, if you want, that we make through our work, through our friendships, through our forms of practice. And of course, how she puts it, this thinking in community, and we create these communities. And those communities have been part of my work in everything, in my teaching, in starting and shaping the Hemispheric Institute of Performance and Politics, which was about this very large community, about getting collectivities and networks working together, talking to each other, getting to know each other. So I think that that's also, you know, part of that form of active transmission, the personal, the making of community, which is so important. I also thought that the part about the hashtag was very interesting, because hashtags, of course, are important in reminding us that even as we have this embodied practice, this grounded theory, we're also always in the digital world. I think it's impossible now to say that we're online or off. I don't know what offline would mean anymore. When people have access to our information, we have these data bodies, you know, people in banking or in government or whatever know exactly who we are. And because of our phones, they know exactly where we are, right? So I don't think we can think of an existence anymore that's not also a digital existence. But the hashtags have this wonderful thing of creating affinities. When we are, you know, any one of these hashtags, we know who our companions are, who the other people are in this group that allow us to do the kind of the work that we do, both on the streets, as Marcela says, but also in this digital world. So I think of all of these different ways of thinking about the interventions you make in this, you know, culminating beautiful score that just puts up there as Academics Presente, which I thought was fabulous, and which really inspired me to think of more things to put on that score and more ways that we can be presentes in our work, in our lives as activists, in our ways of wanting to be with and talking and walking with others. So I just wanted to thank you all for these very thought-provoking and beautiful provocations. Would anybody like to respond or to any of the things I've said, or to the provocations that your colleagues have made?
Well, there's so much here. I mean, thank you so much. That was so fascinating just to, yeah, go through all of these different ideas. I think if we want to generate even more, you know, sort of looping ties, like there are just so many ways of generating all of these different frames for discussion. I guess, yeah, I was curious how you experience this particular like award in terms of like marking something with ceremony. Like I was thinking about this also in terms of transmission and distribution, if we wanted to talk about that. Or
you mean this event of the award?
Yeah, well, that we, you know, this is such, we're marking a moment that's not even the event itself right now. And we've made these videos, we're passing things through time during this process also, as a kind of discursive or, you know, a process of response.
Right. Well, it's remarkable that this is all, or a lot of this is happening remotely because of the pandemic. So to have if you want a celebration of embodied practice and activism, on Zoom seems a little counterintuitive, I guess you would say. I'm very happy that we're going to have a celebration at the end of the day, that we're going to, those of us who can see each other and be together in Washington Square Park will be there, because it's the first time that this will have been a kind of a live kind of party, if you want, ever since the pandemic started. So I'm hopeful about it, but I'm also very grateful, because now not only will we've had this moment now, the moment later during the event, if you want, itself, but these are conversations I'll be able to go back to and listen to later. So there's something about the past, present, and future, as I was saying before, being together all the time, the always already there-ness of the event, that is also getting enacted, I would say, through the kind of presentation in this digital format that we are engaged in.
I'm curious about how you have experienced this past year, which has been so isolating and confusing. And at this moment when we're maybe about to be able to imagine what comes next, and maybe it's too soon to even process, but I'm just curious about your experience of the past year.
It's been a very, very difficult year, obviously, a very, very difficult year. And part of the difficulty was, of course, leaving Hemi as director after 22 years at the end of August, and leaving it in a pandemic, leaving in the midst of, this total shutdown, no possibility of having a goodbye or anything like that. So that was very painful. It's been painful also because there've been so many losses of people I know and losses of people I don't know. And I feel that so much has been lost. I walk down the street and it's just a reminder of how much we've lost. On the other hand, I guess, because now it's spring and now a lot of us have been vaccinated and a lot of us are going to be together in Washington Square Park, and we'll be able to hug some people again and like that. I also feel it's important to recognize and acknowledge what we've lost and what we want to recuperate and what we want to leave behind. There's a lot of things from before that I want to leave behind, and this is a good opportunity. So when I read about things going back to a pre-COVID moment, I say, no, I don't want the pre-COVID moment. I want a really thoughtful post-COVID moment. I want a restorative practice of care that maybe would avoid more of these terrible catastrophes, right? A pandemic, which was an environmental disaster, right? Because of our practices, because humans have not had a practice of care. So I would rather see something different come forward. And I think it's an opportunity to rehearse that, as Jonah would say, let's rehearse a future that we couldn't have imagined pre-pandemic.
There are so many wonderful transitions happening and so many possibilities for the transference of this to end, and then for us to go on to, and we'll be going to in the future, Washington Square Park. But what resonated for me most and what I'm newly thinking about is the shape of a digital body, which I really hadn't thought about until you just mentioned this, in the form of a digital body. And then again, tying in with our colleague Joned, who isn't here with us, the ways that our digital bodies can perform citizenship, and if there will potentially be possibilities for us to counter the insurrectionist moments that are occurring now, and how we might be able to unite and place our scholarship and our work in ways that urge the transmissions from the digital world into
the public sphere onward. And as we think about where the future of academia is, where the future of our world, which is also at a very place of precarity, what you see and how you see us maybe making the interventions for that next form or shape of our work and where our work should be and located.
Thank you, Jess. Well, I would say two things. One is that I'll start with the last, where our work should be located. Clearly in my Presente book, I'm making a statement, I guess, that I feel academics have to be presentes. They have to be politically engaged in what's going on in our world now, regardless of what our different fields of specialization are. I'm not saying that we're not going to be doing the kind of knowledge work that we've been doing, but we have to be a part of this world in ways that I feel are socially, politically, economically responsible, environmentally responsible, right? I think it's just too late to think that we can just isolate ourselves from what's happening. It's impossible. I think it's not viable. I think it's not responsible. I think it's not ethical. In terms of the digital, I guess I would be just as adamant and say, I think it's time to really rein in the tech companies. And, you know, I was reading today, or I just got an update that Facebook has decided not to allow Trump back on Facebook. And I think that's great. But I don't think it should be up to a Zuckerberg or up to Bezos or up to, you know, Twitter. I think it should be a decision that's made internationally about protecting us from this massive misinformation, disinformation, and coercive practices that these tech companies have been involved in. I also read today that a poll, an international poll about democracy, about the future of democracy, found that the US was the greatest threat to democracy in the world, more than China, more than Russia. And part of that, if you break it down, was because of the free reign that these big tech companies have. So I would say that the digital is a source of enormous hope and connectivity for us. I don't think we can imagine a world where we don't have the digital, and we would not be able to live the lives we lead, including this conversation we're having right now, if we did not have the digital capacity. But it's this irresponsible way in which tech companies have not only amassed this enormous amount of data on us, but the way that it's using it for political purposes, commercial purposes, and things that we have no inkling about. We have no conscious knowledge of it. And I think that that has got to stop. So yes, it's a time for, I think, very serious, as I said earlier, right? Reconsideration or thinking about what we want to keep and what we want to let go of, right? I think that this year has given us that pause where we say, you know what, it can't go on like before. Certain things have got to change, and we are the people who have to change them.
Well, while we have time, I just wanted to personally thank you for being such an inspiration. The way that you combine your scholarship and your pedagogy and your activism has been a real source of inspiration to me and many of my colleagues at the Graduate Center. And we're so grateful to you for letting us honor you in this way.
Well, I am very grateful to you. I have to say it was a huge surprise, and it's also, you know, for me, a very wonderful recognition that there are people who are taking this work and moving it along and contributing in their way. And, it's very affirming. It's the most one could ask, I would say, of one's life as a scholar, as an activist, is to have people who say, this works for me. This is meaningful to me. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for helping us decide what to hold on to and what to let go.
Thank you, Esther.
Yes, I echo everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, and thank you for joining us and being with us, celebrating Diana Taylor, who is now live here with us. I'm going to open the Espacio de Saludos, the room for greetings. You can find the link on the chat section of the Howl Around website. I'm just posting it right now. And it will also be posted on the Siegel Center's website. No, Facebook or website? Sorry, Jess. Facebook. The Siegel Center's Facebook page and also on Howl Around. So please join us. We're here in Zoom and we'll be accepting people as you come into the room. I'm gonna post it again y lo voy a decir en español. Vamos a abrir ahora el espacio de saludos, así que quien quiera venir al Zoom y saludar a Diana, aquí puse el link para conectarse en la sección de chat. Ya tenemos a alguien que viene. El link está en la sección de chat de la página de Howl Around, donde están viendo en este momento la ceremonia online. Si bajan en la página van a ver una sección que dice chat. Me parece que tienen que inscribirse, poner solamente su nombre, entrar en el chat y ahí van a ver el link para la reunión de Zoom. Again, in English, if you are on Howl Around, if you scroll down, you're gonna see the section for chat, and you need to enter your name. I think with your name is enough to get access to the chat room. And once you're in the chat room, you will find the link to come into this Zoom meeting. And we hope you join us. We're gonna be here for a few minutes. And I open the space. I think Olivia is here.
Yeah. Bueno, mientras esperamos, quiero darle las gracias a todas ustedes, a todos ustedes, los que organizaron este evento tan maravilloso y la gente que nos acompañó durante estas 2 horas y media. So just to start, I want to thank you all so much, those of you who organized this event and have Mientras esperamos, quiero darle las gracias a todas ustedes que organizaron este evento tan maravilloso y la gente que... And also I want to thank everybody who's been accompanying us for these 2.5 hours. It's very moving.
Okay, so more people are joining.
I want to thank everybody who's been accompanying us for...
We're gonna ask you if you join the Zoom room to please mute the live event so that we don't create echoes. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
So nice to see you. Oh my God, the 3 of you were just so moving.
Oh, it was so fun. Thank you so much for inviting us, Maria, to contribute something, and congratulations, Diana. It was such a moving tribute.
Thank you. And it was all a surprise. I mean, really, I did not know who they'd reached out to, or anyway, so it was very beautiful.
That was.
Thank you.
There was a lot of people working behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And beautifully done. Oh my God. Under Zoom conditions. Really amazing. So too bad. Are you coming to the park, Alicia? Will you be able to come?
I'm upstate right now. I wish I could.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
It was
I
so
know.
wonderful
Yeah.
to see everyone and
Yeah.
hear you speak. I hope that someone publishes everything you said today because it was so brilliant.
Thank you.
Can someone do
Yeah.
that?
The event is going to stay on HowlRound, so you'll be able to rewatch it as many times as you want. So it's going to be archived there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Olivia, you're way out of state.
I am. I'm like on the other coast. I wish I could come
I know.
come join you guys.
Yeah. It would be
Only
great.
soon.
Soon. We have to have another party, but I'm excited about this one. It's my first party since Zoom. I mean, since COVID started. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Perfect timing with the mask decision yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, perfect timing. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
We're still going to keep social distancing procedures just in case to protect everyone. But
Hi, Richard. Hi, can you hear us? He's muted. Can you hear us? You're muted though. You're muted. We can't hear you.
Now you can hear me.
Yes, now we can.
Yeah. I
Well,
forgot.
thank you. Thank you for that lovely
Well,
tribute. I was very moved.
Life. You know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
boy.
Marcos.
I'm not muted. No, now you can hear me.
No, now we can hear you.
Yeah.
And Marcos.
Diana.
Hi,
Hi,
thank
Marcos.
you. Thank you for those wonderful words. I feel
Thank you.
very moved and incredibly lucky.
I'm not muted. No, now you can.
Yeah, we can hear you. Leticia.
Hi,
Hi, thank
Marcos.
you. Oh my God, you guys are the best.
Leticia was a big conspirator with us.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I knew that. I mean, I think she was one of the few names that I gave you. I said, because if you talk to Leticia, she can do everything. she will know who I talk to and who I walk with, and you know
And
what this journey has been.
conspirator with us. And Pancho Lopez is here
Pancho,
too,
hola.
who is going to be performing live in Washington Square at 5:30.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very enough. And Maria Jose, hola, thank you. Oh my God. That performance was so moving. I have to think about that one for a long time. No soy esto, pero soy esto. Así es que bueno, vamos a ver. Qué impactante. Thank you. Oh my God.
I'm gonna ask for those of you who are in the Zoom room to unmute the volume of the live event so that we don't have echo. Thank you.
Is there a loop?
There is a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you who are in the Zoom room, unmute volume. It's so nice. It's so wonderful to see all of your faces now again together. Like we've been seeing you all separate at different moments in time. It's been in the process, in the makings for many months. So it's very nice now to have everybody gathered here together.
It's wonderful to see you. Richard, are you coming to the park?
Yeah, I'm coming to the park.
Yay. And Marcos, are you going to be in the park, Leti?
I wish. I'm in Pennsylvania. But I'm going to be there with my heart for sure.
Okay. And you, Marcos?
No, I'm in Colorado here.
You're
So
coming all the way from Colorado
Yeah.
to dance
Just
in
wait
the
a
park
bit.
with
I'll
us?
be there soon.
Well, everybody should go to their own local park.
Yes.
Maybe we'll have the same playlist and we can all be dancing at the same time. Yeah. And you, Maria Jose, when do you get here?
By the end of August.
Okay, good. We'll have another party in the park.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see you all. So I'm not sure if we should stay on very long or if we should, I'm going to obviously write to all of you and plan a time to talk to you individually, but it's been a long Zoom day, so maybe people are happy to get off of Zoom and we will see each other later today or
What time is it? At 5 o'clock in New York time?
5:30.
5:30. Okay.
5:30. One of my students is there already. She says, "Where are you all?"
Okay.
Perfect
Okay.
day.
So we will
Hasta
see
luego.
you, and I will contact those of you who are not in the park today. Okay.
And Maria and Jess and everybody who organized this, thank you for doing that.
Unbelievable.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you all.
unbelievable, Jess and Maria and all of you. Really, I'm very, very grateful.
Thank you.
It
guys.
was a
Thank you.
collaborative work. So thank
Bye.
you, all of you.
Abrazos, Diana.
Hasta luego.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. Maria and all of you, really, ya nos vamos.
From Costa Rica.
Muchos saludos, muchos saludos.
Muchas felicidades.
Gracias. Gracias.
Thank you. That concludes the first half of our event today. Please join us for the second half at 5:30 in Washington Square Park.
Soy una mujer.
Don't forget your face mask and your headphones.
Mi presidente, que nunca seré embajadora por no usar tacón de señora y porque con la diplomacia no checan mis múltiples gracias. Soy una mujer inconveniente, tienes que tomarlo relajadamente. No te amo más que a mis gatos, pero te amo mucho ratos, ni lo suficiente alcanza, y ahora me besas la panza. No soy tus pantuflas, ni soy tu madre, no soy tu gobierno, ni tu comadre, no prefiero adentro ni afuera. Soy una mujer inconveniente, me lo dijo ayer mi presidente, que nunca seré embajadora por no usar tacón de señora y porque con la diplomacia no checan mis múltiples gracias. Soy una mujer inconveniente, tienes que tomarlo relajadamente. No te amo más que a mis gatos, pero te amo mucho ratos, ni lo suficiente alcanza, y ahora me besas la panza. No soy tus pantuflas, ni soy tu madre, no soy tu gobierno, ni tu comadre, no prefiero adentro ni afuera, ni me colmará una chequera. Soy una mujer que entre otras cosas exhibe, ostenta una historia indecorosa. Soy una mujer inconveniente, de esas que son fieles relativamente. Dicen que no tengo moralina, porque me desnudo en la cocina. Dicen que no tengo moraleja, me gustan muchísimas cosas. Soy una mujer inconveniente, ráscame la espalda delicadamente. Siempre tengo ganas, muchas ganas de tenerte aquí en mi cama. Tráeme el desayuno en la mañana